Hello, everybody. I'm just getting started. Give me just 1 second. I'm going to be adding play. There we go. Let's see if this works.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Oh, awesome.
Worked. Yay. There we go. Okay. Perfect. I'm always thrilled when this.
I know, it's like me too. I'm always like, technology, what is it?
I know. You never know. Anyway, so for everybody who's joining, I am going to be talking with Allie today from Play to Progress. And before we get started, I'm going to introduce myself and Goodbuy Gear, and then we'll jump into the questions. So to start, my name is Kristen. I am Goodbuy Gear's resident gear expert. I'm a mom of two, and I work with Goodbuy Gear. Goodbuy Gear is an online marketplace where you can buy and sell new and gently used kids gear. You can find anything from bassinets to carriers to bottles to toys, all the things you need for a baby or a kid at an average of 50% off retail, and we sell over 1,200 different brands. So definitely make sure you check out Goodbuy Gear if you're in the need and shopping. And today we're going to talk with a Tot Squad provider. Tot Squad is an online marketplace where you can find experts for all of the questions new parents have around babies and kids. So you can find experts like Allie, who is an occupational therapist. You can find experts on feeding, breastfeeding, car seat installation, basically anything and everything you need as a new parent. So I definitely recommend checking out Tot Squad for providers if you have questions. And let's get started today, Allie. We are going to be talking about 9-month-olds, progress and milestones that parents should be thinking about and considering. But before we get started, can you introduce yourself? Just tell us about you. Tell us about Play to Progress.
Absolutely. So I'm Allie. I am an occupational therapist. I specialize specifically in sensory integration. I also am the founder of a company called Play to Progress. We're a play-based learning center, and we run classes from ages 0 on up. And we also do individual and group occupational therapy. I'm also an author. I wrote a book all about what we're going to talk about today, right here. And I'm just extremely passionate about child development and how we can help empower parents to understand your little one's development.
That's awesome. I'm so excited to talk to you. I can remember as a new parent, I took my son to see an occupational therapist at one point, but I remember at the points before that and being very confused on what I should be expecting, what parents can be looking for. I didn't know about Tot Squad then, so it makes me so happy to know that these places exist for parents and people like you exist to answer all these questions and really help guide parents. But my first really question for you is, what are the developmental milestones for the 9-month-old, and why is this age?
This is a really good question. So before I go directly into this, one thing I'm going to mention is I really think of milestones as stages rather than direct ages. There is, a typical range that all babies will meet their milestones within. So always remember that and try not to compare with friends. With that said, it is really important that you understand development as parents as well and know how to help your little one reach that next milestone. So when it comes to 9-month-olds, one of the biggest things that I feel like I need to talk about, I know we only have a short time, so I'm going to go straight to what I feel is the most important to mention right now, and that is crawling. The reason I am talking about that is I'm not sure if everyone knows, the CDC has recently removed crawling as a milestone, something that I strongly disagree with, as does, I would say, majority of early childhood specialists.
Yeah.
And so when I'm looking at a 9-month-old, one of the milestones, there's many milestones we look for, but the one I'm going to talk about is really crawling. It's very, very important for their brain development. And it's something that we want to make sure they don't skip. So we want to work towards it. How do we crawl? And when I talk about crawling, a lot of people in many babies start with army crawling. So I don't know if you know what army crawling is, but yeah.
Yes, like where they're like
their legs and their
on the ground.
Is on the ground. Exactly. And many babies start this way and will then progress to on all fours crawling. So don't be alarmed if your baby is starting this way, but we do really want to make sure that before they begin walking as their primary mode, they're really crawling on all fours. It's an important milestone. So that's really the big one that I'm going to talk about, today with our 9-month-olds, just because it was extremely disappointing to see that the CDC removed it. And I find it's very important that parents know it's still a very important milestone.
Yeah, I think one of the things I learned as a new parent is that crawling is also related to brain development. And that really helped me because physically, I think it's easy to say like, oh, they skipped crawling. Who cares? Like they can walk and that's more important. But actually, I think knowing when I found this all out from an occupational therapist is that the crawling piece is also really linked to brain development and to your child's like future growth. Even though it's this short period of time when they're a baby, that it's actually truly important for long term. And that it's, like you said, having that crawling where they're on their hands and knees and their tummy is off the ground. Because I also was like, he's army crawling, and they're like, no.
And there's so many ways you can help your little one progress from army crawling to upright crawling, but you're right. And that's why I feel like I'm screaming this at the top of my lungs right now, because I feel like us as early childhood experts are really having to now fight with the CDC kind of put out there.
Right. Yeah. So here's a question for you that wasn't on our questions list. If you're a new parent and you're getting to that range where you have an 8-month-old or maybe a 9-month-old or maybe older and they're not crawling yet, who do you recommend that they call? Do they call their pediatrician? Do they call an occupational therapist? Like, do they look for a play group at their local play? Like, where do you go? What's the first thing you would do if
this
you
is
were
a really
parent
good
and your
question.
baby
I
wasn't
don't
crawling?
think many people know this, but there's something called early intervention. When your child is under 3, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty positive that I know for sure in California, I know for sure in Michigan, which is where I'm from, and I'm almost positive it's throughout the country, you qualify to have your little one evaluated by a team of therapists that is completely free of charge. So here in Los Angeles, in California, it's called Regional Center. I believe other places it's called Early Start. You have to figure out what it's called in your state, but that's actually who I would call. It's completely free of charge, and they come to your house. I would also make sure you are doing a lot of tummy time, because your little one needs opportunity on the floor to learn to crawl. They're not on the floor. How are they going to learn?
Yeah. And there's so many contraptions these days. I definitely got into that where it's so much easier. And I know like in my first, like I had stairs and I was like, I just need to keep them contained because, you're just nervous. And so like you said, having them just on the floor is really important. And it's so simple. It's like, just let them do their thing and they'll get going, which is great. And I do think state to state that there is I know Colorado has a program that's free for people from 0 to 3. Early Start is what ours is called. I'm
almost positive it's national, but I just didn't want to misspeak just in case there's like one outlier state or something.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yes, totally. Okay, so that's a great place for parents to start. And I know my pediatrician sent us to an occupational therapist. And so that's also a great option too for parents. And I've been seeing, I don't know, and like at least in Colorado, there's a lot of occupational therapists that host groups for parents who have kids in the same age where you can help your baby and learn all these tools. you know, at your like local, like, you know, they have little gymnastics play
And that's
places,
what we
or, you
do,
know,
right?
whatever
That's
it is,
what we
tiny
do at Play
tots.
to Progress. And we actually also have, like, you can book a support call with us right online, and we can give you some tips and, you know, also help guide you to, if you need more support, we can help guide you and help work with you through that process. If that's something that's needed. But we always want to remember early intervention is so important. So don't do the wait it out. Try, I know it's so hard, but this is why our states have these services. We know it's important to get ahead of it. There isn't shame. There's nothing like the quicker we get to it, the better.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Well, good. Okay, so my next question for you is, what is the best way to engage with a 9-month-old? Like, what at this age, like, what are your recommendations for engaging with a 9-month-old? You're home all day.
This is a great question. One of my favorite questions, because I think as adults, and okay, I'm going to say this, but it goes all the way up through childhood, especially in the younger years.
Yeah.
One, tap into your inner child. Be playful with them and have fun. Yeah. But two, remember, they copy us and they learn from us. That also means we don't want to do everything for them. So help them work through whatever it is that you're doing. Be creative, be fun, be playful, be very mindful how you're talking to them, because your language and how you interact with them really, really matters. But for instance, if a little one is trying to get up on the couch and they're really struggling and their favorite toy is on the couch, I may say something like, oh, I see you really want that toy. You really want to get up there. It's really frustrating. And then I might pull something like an ottoman that they can get up onto closer to the couch and kind of show them, let's do it this way. So break down that task for them and help them get there. I also think just free play is so important. We sometimes forget, especially with all this technology, that just take out the pots, the pans, just play. Just have fun in the backyard. I'm from the Midwest. We grew up never wearing shoes. We like caught toads and started really little, like 9 months old. We were like outside in the dirt and in the grass, and go back to what we did as kids.
Yeah, I love that. I grew up the same way. My parents, this was joking with a friend, my parents used to just like shut the door. I mean, obviously not when I was a baby, but generally as kids, you grew up and just being outside. I was just like outside all the time in the woods and playing. But I think it's great for parents. I know, like, as a new parent, I was living in a big city and I didn't have that. And so I had a really hard time finding ways, you know, like I was living in 800 square feet and I didn't really have ways to engage outside as much because of weather, or, you know, I'm having to go to a park and whatnot. And so are there any fun activities that parents can do with, like, your favorite number one or number, you know, two activities that you can do with an 8 or 9 month old while you're at home that would engage them, fun for them?
Yeah, so this is a good question. I mean, I wrote a book on this, so my book is filled with activities. But also, this is, I think, going to surprise people, but some of my favorite activities don't really use anything special. Like, they're not using real toys. They're using things out of your recycling bin. So I like to take the toilet paper rolls, tape them to your wall, or if you don't want tape on your wall, you can do it to your, like, when your like sliding door, whatever it is. You can take cotton balls, whatever it is you have. I mean, we want to make sure that they're not mouthing things. So you can also do it with Cheerios. So if they're at this age, they put everything in their mouth. So a lot of times we'll use Cheerios and let them start placing them down and in. Play with water. We also want to use, this may seem funny, but the couch pillows at this age are one of my favorite toys. Rip those couch pillows off the couch, put them on the floor. You know, we talked about army crawling. Well, one of the best ways to work on that, let them crawl over pillows. put their favorite toys, build a little baby obstacle course. All you're doing is taking your couch pillows off the couch and putting them on the floor, which I know some people don't like, but just try it. You can use your old pillows too. It doesn't have to be nice pillows. And put your toy, put their favorite toy on the other side, and really encourage them to crawl that way. Don't put too many toys out. That's another really big thing. Because think of it, and this goes again all the way up through childhood. If you have too many toys out, what are they going to do? Jump from toy to toy to toy to toy, jump, 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 jump. It's going to be a big mess. If you just have a few toys out, they're going to play with each toy for a longer period of time and use it in a lot of different ways. So this is something that I'm really big on. We always want to make sure fewer toys are out. You can put the others in storage, under the bed, donate, whatever, you know?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, I can definitely remember having a toy basket, and my son would pull all the toys out, and then he'd be like, okay, now what? And I'm like, oh, we can play with all of them. And he was just like, but that's the game. Like, pull all the toys out of the toy basket. But yeah, I think it's like overwhelming. So having less toys is more. Doing small things like the couch pillows, that's a great idea. I never even thought of that. I love that. And then also using, like you said, like things out of the recycling bin, cardboard, things like that, instead of feeling like you need to get new toys, or just playing with water. I can remember filling up like a little bowl of water and putting my son on the floor in the kitchen, and he, you know, I'm like, go to town, you know, and he just splash around, and it's like, it doesn't have to be anything expensive or
you
fancy.
Can use your like baby meltables and put those in practice, putting those down little toilet paper rolls, tape, anything you want to do, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so speaking of babies putting things in their mouth, do you have any recommendations on how to keep a 9-month-old from putting things in their mouth?
Like I just said, as I said cotton balls earlier, I was like, wait, no, not cotton balls. So that's what you always have to think about is, what are they going to put in their mouth? It is typical development that they're putting things in their mouth. So I think that's an important thing to remember and understand, that that's very, very typical. I'm really big on, let's baby proof the space. Like, I'm the biggest baby proofer, rather than containing the baby. They're going to put things in their mouth. And so just making sure the space is as baby proofed as possible. The other big thing that really works well is, say, because they will get something they shouldn't put in their mouth. Say they have something like the TV remote or something like that, and they're starting to put that in their mouth, and obviously it's not safe. They can't have that in their mouth. What you would do is kind of take something that they can, like a teether or something that is safe for them to put them in their mouth, and rather than just taking that toy and saying, can't put that in our mouth, that's not safe, you trade it. So you're going to say, oh, here's unsafe for us. Like, I'll take the remote, but this is safe for us, and teach them. So do that little trade. So then they have something to put in, but you've taken away the thing that's unsafe.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. What do you do, like, or what's your recommendation for if you have an older toddler, and like, for instance, my son, he loved Legos, and he was playing with the little Legos from a very young age. And then my daughter comes along, and I felt like I had to take him away because I was so nervous about her putting Legos in her mouth. And I remember thinking, well, it's not really fair to take all these away from my son because he loves this and it's such a good activity for his age. So how do you recommend handling something like that? Like, what would your recommendation?
A really good question. I would say this is like one of my top questions I get asked, and it's an important thing when it comes to having a new baby and you have a sibling. This is always my recommendation. Have a safe spot that is just the older sibling's spot. It can be their bedroom if they have their own bedroom. can even be just a little gated area
Mhm.
off your living room. It can be a spot under the stairs, but kind of make it into this like
Okay.
special Lego spot, right? Where it's their special place. This is
Okay.
yours. This is where you get to make your Legos, and make it feel special for them. And making sure it's gated
Okay.
off, and also letting them know, of course, you have to let them in of like, this is your special space, because it's unsafe for the baby, but making sure that they feel still like they have ownership over it is really, really important, because we don't want
Okay.
them to feel like this baby came along and now I'm losing my favorite toys. And so create
Right.
that sense of ownership
Yep.
and that sense of pride for being an older sibling too.
Okay. That's helpful. That's what I kind of came to eventually. But I remember having this internal dilemma and it being this like long thing. And I know it's stressful when you have a new baby or, a young baby and a toddler, and you're already juggling your time and energy. And it's like, you don't want to take away something from them, but it can be so stressful for parents when you have all these little parts lying around all the time. And at that age, just like everything is in your mouth. So stressful. Another question that we get a lot is about like, how do you entertain a 9-month-old, or like, around that age range? And I know we've already talked a little bit about activities you can do, but do you believe in entertaining a 9-month-old? And what are some additional things that parents can do to keep 9-month-olds busy? And are there any toys that you particularly like?
This is a good question
for parents.
So I'm going to go start with the sensory system. So we have 8 senses. We don't have 5. We're always taught we have 8. Our 9-month-olds are in a stage of development called the sensory motor stage. What does this mean? They're actually learning through moving and engaging their senses. That's when they're creating those neural connections in their brain. And their brain is like rapidly developing right now. It's so amazing. So what do we want to play? We want to let them engage their senses in all 8 of them. So we often think of sensory play as just tactile play. That is one piece of sensory play, an important piece. I always, again, tried to raise advocacy for sensory plays, also engaging all of the rest of our senses. So one of our senses is vestibular, our sense of movement. So making sure they are moving, coming back to those couch pillows, that's sensory play. That's engaging their proprioceptive system. So when it comes to toys, I highly recommend trying to avoid toys that require batteries. You're not going to be able to avoid them completely. Grandma might bring some over, but trying to make sure that your toys are simple and your little one has to play with them versus the toy plays for them by just the push of a button. We want them to come up with what to play with. Honestly, pots and pans and containers are some of your best toys you could ever use. So
that's great. All right. That's really helpful to know, because I think parents, I know, I mean, I cannot tell you how overwhelmed I felt. Like, I don't have enough things for him to play with. I have all these things. And also then you get worried because you feel, you're like guilty and whatnot. And I have another question for you that's not on the list, but this is my last one. There's a lot of companies out there now that do toy, like there's Love Every, there's Montessori toys. If you're going to buy toys for your kids, do you recommend using a service like that?
If that works for you, absolutely. That is totally fine. What I will say about that is if you're using those subscription toys, you don't need additional toys. Because you really need very few toys. And then you get this box that's just, subscribed perfect for you right at their stage. I recently had a parent say to me, I think she had one of them. I think she had Love Every. And she was like, I have the Love Every box. Yeah. But my little one prefers to play with all the toys that he pushes and they light up. And I was like, this child was around this age. And I was like, of course he does. Why? Because he's just having to push a button, it's lighting up, versus actually working towards how do I figure this out? When I said put those toilet paper rolls up and put things in. They may not get it at first. They may just rip them down and slowly, as they get older, work towards that. That's okay. And what's so great about some of these subscription models, like Love Every Toys, they may not figure it out right the very first time they use it. That's okay. They're going to keep working towards it versus just a toy where they push, it lights up, and it entertains them. Because that goes more close to, I mean, those toys are playing for little ones instead of them having to use their brain, figure out how do I play with it. So if you have a subscription, I think they're great, but you don't need all the additional toys too. And I often see parents have them and the additional toys. Just stick to that.
Okay. That's really helpful. So put away all the other stuff. Just use the simple toys that are easy to play with and nothing with batteries.
Exactly.
Okay, that's so helpful. Awesome. Well, that's sort of all of my questions. Is there anything else that you would like parents to know about this age range, about milestones in development?
Okay, I'm going to give you like one of my magic tips. And this is, at this age, they are crawling up, down, all around, and you might turn around and they are on top of something. It doesn't matter how closely you're watching them. Immediately, when they start crawling and they're on things, I immediately start teaching them. We always go down backwards. So if they're up on the couch, I won't lift them down. I'll turn them around onto their tummy and guide them to come down backwards. You're going to have to do it so many times, but it is a huge safety hack, because then they'll, you know, if they get on top of something, they crawl up onto the couch, they'll know we have to come backwards.
Right. Okay. So that's really helpful to know. And I think too, mentioning having to do it a million times, because I can remember trying to teach my son this. He was wild. And he was the kid where you turn around and you'd be at the top of the wood stairs and you're like, oh my gosh. But I remember thinking, like, is he ever going to get it? Like, is he ever going to really learn to go down backwards after I felt like I've done it 100 times? But I do think it's one of those things, like you said, you have to keep doing it over and over. It's going to take a few times.
Way more than a few times.
This is how I get off.
So.
Yes. Yeah. But I even notice now that he's older, like, I think it becomes intuitive, but also I think when you teach a kid that, as they grow older, they learn how to safely get down, like from playgrounds and from like when they're climbing up brick wall, you know, when you're out and about in a neighborhood or wherever and they're climbing things, and then they naturally are like, oh, this is how I get down. Like, so it is helpful.
So many kids, I love the motor planning challenge. At the top of a pickler, they have to turn around and come back down. You're right, exactly. So it all starts right here, but it's so important we teach them, and it's going to take a lot of time. So don't give up on it.
Yeah. Okay. And before, because you just mentioned the pickler, so will you just talk about what that is really quick, because it's a great one. And
I love picklers. So there's pickler triangles and pickler arches. They're essentially it's a wooden ladder, is an easy way to call it, but it's not just a ladder. It's a triangle, and so they climb up, they turn around and climb down. They also have arches, which are really nice as they're younger, and you can turn the arch over, talking about that movement, that vestibular input, and they can sit in it and they can rock, and then they can also climb on top of it. So if you're looking for, you need a big birthday present, something like that, highly, highly recommend picklers.
Okay. Pickler triangle and pickler arch are great. I remember learning about those as a new parent, and I was like, wow, I need one of these. This is awesome. So that's really great for people to find. And there are companies that make different ones, different price ranges.
Yes,
yeah,
it's definitely, and especially if you live somewhere where you can't get outside a lot, they're perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, that's great to know. Okay, well, so since we're just finishing up, can you please tell everyone where they can find you, your book, your platform? Tell us how, you know, everything about you.
Absolutely. So you can get my book. It's Play TO Progress, anywhere where books are sold. So anywhere you can find that. It's audio, Kindle, all the versions. You can find us at play2progress.com. So the book is TO and the company is number 2. a little confusing. And
Okay.
you can also follow us, of course, and we are here for anything you need.
Awesome. And they can find you on Tot Squad. You are a provider through Tot Squad. So if you go to Tot Squad and you are looking for an expert provider or an occupational therapist, you can also find Allie on there as well, which is great. So I highly recommend everybody check out Allie, follow her, check out Goodbuy Gear, and make sure you also check out Tot Squad because there are so many good resources through all three of these companies for all of you new parents out there. And
Awesome.
I think that's all.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for chatting with us,
Awesome.
and I hope that
See
we
you.
can do it again soon.